The newly released action movie Havoc boasts that the amount of blood used could submerge an entire city. In this film, Tom Hardy, known for Venom, takes on a new role as a relentless human meat grinder. The director is none other than the renowned Gareth Evans, the mastermind behind the Raid series. Today, let's dive headfirst into this movie that perfectly blends brutal violence with internal struggles, and experience the tenacity and courage to never give up in the face of despair. The story begins with a drug robbery. To alleviate their family's financial difficulties, Police Officer Walker, along with 4 colleagues, raids a drug dealer's den they have been surveilling for a long time. However, just as they are about to leave, a drug dealer member responsible for guarding the entrance hears a noise and enters to investigate with a flashlight. Walker seizes the opportunity to knock him down, but upon seeing the person's face clearly, the officers panic because this individual turns out to be one of their own, planted by the police force within the drug den. He even had a wire on him. Walker believes they should immediately take him to the hospital, but Vince thinks doing so would be too risky.
And if he did make it, he'd have a hell of a story to tell.
Vince's gunshot ends Walker's compassion and plunges him into deep self-blame. In the following period, Walker returns to his father's old house, intending to let time erase that painful memory. But the other 4 encounter trouble during this time. They are ordered to intercept a truck loaded with drugs. However, this time the robbers seem very familiar with police tactics. Facing the blockade, the robbers simply floor the accelerator. The powerful engine allows the truck to drive smoothly, even on muddy roads. Their lack of cooperation leads the officers to consider using force. Seeing the situation was dire, the robbers decisively crash through the guardrail and onto the highway, but the police car behind them remains in close pursuit. To shake off the police car, the robbers inside the truck look at the washing machine beside them and get an idea. Immediately after, the door opens, and the 2 of them work together to throw a washing machine at the police car. Although this throw stops the police car, it also brings them even bigger trouble. By the time the others catch up, Cortez is covered in blood and on the verge of death. His colleagues immediately return to their vehicle to call for help. Meanwhile, the fleeing robbers and his girlfriend Mia arrive in the territory of the Chinese Triad gang. Carrying 2 black packages, they are led by a member into an underground bar. The young man in front of them is Xu Feng, the current leader of the Triad. His subordinate opens the packages, which are full of drugs. At this moment, accomplices outside the door notice a suspicious car driving out of the alley. The people in the car are wearing masks, clearly indicating they are not friendly, so they immediately call Mia.
Mia, get the fuck out of there now!
Walker and his new partner had just finished their patrol and were preparing to return when they heard a police dispatch report over the radio. Walker decisively turned the steering wheel, and Ellie switched on the police lights. The 2 quickly headed towards the scene. Upon arrival, the area was already swarming with people, and the inside of the bar was a bloody mess. Everyone present had been killed, including the Triad boss, Xu Feng. Based on years of police experience, Walker could easily piece together the scene. When the attackers appeared, the Triad members were completely unprepared. The attackers had superior weapons and overwhelming firepower, giving them no chance to fight back. They were shot down one after another, and the scene instantly turned into a living hell. Just as Walker was running through the faces of people he had encountered who might be the killer, he was interrupted by a colleague beside him. From his colleague, Walker learned about Cortez's injury. The 2 had a good relationship within the police force, and Cortez's injury surprised Walker. At this moment, Ellie walked over holding her phone. They had captured the killer's image on surveillance footage, but upon clearly seeing the person's face, Walker's expression changed. However, to avoid arousing his partner's suspicion, Walker shifted his gaze to the weapon in the young man's hand. He concluded that the young man shouldn't be the killer because no handgun casings were left at the scene, and a handgun couldn't inflict such extensive damage instantly. This statement successfully misled Ellie. So, while she was still confused, Walker quietly walked out. He saw a trail of blood leading from the doorway out onto the street. Walker guessed that someone must have escaped, but he didn't say anything and instead quickly left the scene. Later, he found mayor's candidate Beaumont. That's right, the black young man in the surveillance footage was his son, Charlie. But Beaumont found it impossible that his son had committed murder. However, Walker knew very well that this didn't need confirmation. Charlie was already involved. If the public found out about this, his mayoral candidacy would definitely be revoked. No one would believe that the father of a drug dealer could govern the city well. Beaumont was furious after hearing this. He told Walker to find Charlie by any means necessary, even threatening him.
I make one phone call, you and your friend go down for life.
Walker had leverage over him and had no choice but to agree. But the condition was that after this matter, there would be no further contact between them and Beaumont agreed. The death of her only son, Xu Fang, enraged his mother in Hong Kong, so she appeared in New York at the first opportunity. Looking at her son's cold body, Clarice was momentarily unable to accept it. The seeds of hatred took root completely at this moment. She slowly walked up to Kui Hai, who was responsible for her son's security. Based on the clues he had, Walker arrived in Chinatown. At this time, Xu Fang's escaped subordinate was receiving treatment here. Walker effortlessly took down the outer thugs and rushed in. Seeing Walker's hostile approach, Xu Fang's subordinate broke the window glass and tried to escape, but Walker was faster, directly pulling him back from outside the window. This person was key to Walker finding Charlie and couldn't die yet. Walker took out a photo and asked him if he had seen the person in the picture. Seeing that the other party wasn't talking, Walker had to resort to violence. Under the dual torment of psychological and mental pressure, the young man finally told the truth. He did see Charlie and Kui Hai together, but when Walker asked him if Charlie had shot and killed Xu Fang, the young man said no. The one who killed Xu Fang were 3 men in black wearing ice hockey masks. This seemed like a clue, but upon closer thought, it didn't seem very useful, because no one knew what those 3 people looked like. Walker knew there was no point in pressing further. So, after warning the doctor, he got up and left. But as soon as he left, the doctor picked up the scalpel on the ground and brutally slit the young man's artery. After leaving Chinatown, Walker arrived at the hospital and met the other members of the corrupt cop group of 5. Their expressions indicated that things were troublesome, and Vince confirmed this. They had already investigated and found out that Charlie was the truck driver that night, and Charlie was now on the wanted list.
We've all done shit for Lawrence. So you're gonna shoot him?
Vince didn't answer, but the expression on his face already told Walker the answer. Later, Walker saw the heavily injured and unconscious Cortez in the hospital room. Although he was out of immediate danger, the doctor couldn't guarantee whether Cortez would wake up or if he would be in a vegetative state if he did. Looking at his once close brother lying in the hospital bed, Walker felt a pang of sorrow. Kayla told him that when Cortez was first brought to the hospital, he kept muttering, "The 5 of them are in trouble." Kayla didn't know what it meant, but Walker knew very well that it was related to their raid on the drug dealer's den. But to comfort Kayla, he still took the blame upon himself. Meanwhile, to escape this dangerous place with Charlie, Mia found her foster father Raul, hoping he could get her and Charlie each a set of passports. To prevent them from being found, Raul told them to hide at his secret hideout first, and he would find them after preparing the passports. But he didn't expect that just as the passports were ready but not yet delivered, Walker showed up at his door first. It turned out that after leaving the hospital and returning to the police station, his female partner had told him the latest investigation results. It turned out that the girl who appeared at the crime scene at the same time as Charlie was the adopted daughter of a junkyard owner named Raul. This news was very important, so Walker wanted to try his luck, and he happened to see Raul trying to hide the prepared passports. After confirming the information on the passports, Walker asked where Mia was hiding, but Raul stubbornly refused to say. Walker was no pushover either, directly putting a gun to his body.
She will not get out of this fucking city alive, not without my help.
Hearing this, Raul chose to compromise and handed Walker the unlocked phone, also telling him how he and Mia would exchange passports. Walker warned him to act as if he had never been there and didn't know him if anyone asked, then drove away from the junkyard. Just as his son was about to be found, Beaumont encountered trouble first, because the Triad had already set their sights on him. Right in the middle of a traffic jam at an intersection, their car was surrounded by Triad members, and then someone climbed onto their car roof with a gun. Beaumont inside the car was terrified. The panicked female assistant opened the car door and tried to escape, but a cold bullet awaited her. Beaumont thus became a captive of the Triad, and Clarice also learned about the relationship between Mia and Charlie from her subordinate Kui Hai. Obviously, if they found Mia, it wouldn't be difficult to capture Charlie. Just then, Curly from Mia's group came looking for them. He knew what kind of organization the Triad was, and to save his own life, he was willing to lead them to Mia.
Where?
At this time, Mia had just received a message from Raul, asking her to meet at a bar called Medusa, but the person she waited for was not Raul, but Walker. Seeing this, Mia tried to escape, but Walker grabbed her back. He told Mia that he wasn't there to arrest her. As long as she told him Charlie's whereabouts, he would leave immediately. But Mia was tough and didn't care about Walker's threats, nor would she reveal Charlie's location. But at this moment, she noticed 3 figures walking into the bar.
him. Damn fucking sure.
Walker turned around and saw 3 members of the corrupt cop group of 5. Mia said that they were wearing ice hockey masks at the time, but she had knocked off one of the masks. Vince stepped forward and said he wanted to talk to Mia, but Walker firmly refused. However, just as the 2 sides were in a stalemate, Walker noticed Triad members in the crowd were approaching them. At this moment, Vince finally spotted the Triad thugs. Mia turned and ran, and Walker also launched an attack. Instantly, the entire bar descended into a chaotic brawl. In fact, the Triad members had a clear objective. They didn't currently know that the corrupt cops in front of them were the ones who killed Shu Fang. Their arrival this time was solely to capture Mia based on Curly's guidance. Capturing Mia would allow them to follow the clues to find Charlie and thus avenge Shu Fang. They originally thought it would be an easy operation, but they didn't expect to encounter Walker and his group. Throughout the entire process, Walker consistently protected Mia from harm. And Mia had also learned a few moves from her veteran foster father. In life-threatening situations, she even amplified her combat power several times. The fighting in the entire bar was exceptionally bloody and very realistic, as if it were happening right before your eyes. As the fight continued, melee weapons were no longer enough to suppress this group of desperados. After taking down a group of Triad members, Walker was the first to open fire, killing the thug who threatened Mia, and then unleashing a barrage of bullets at the remaining thugs. Mia seized the opportunity to climb down to the first floor along the iron scaffolding. Charlie and Raul also arrived just in time. Walker, who had jumped down, grabbed Charlie. The purpose of finding Mia today was solely for him, but Charlie didn't cooperate, so Walker grabbed Mia to threaten Charlie, telling him to leave with him. But the Triad's attack continued, and Walker had no choice but to leave with the 2 of them first. During this process, Raul was hit by several bullets, and one of the corrupt cop group of 5, after raising his gun and killing several Triad members, was finally slashed in the carotid artery by the enemy. Just as Walker and the others reached the corridor, they encountered the arriving police. Walker took out his badge, ready to identify himself. Seeing this, Walker had no choice but to lead the others back inside. To buy Mia enough time to escape, Raul used his bare hands to hold the door shut with all his might. Just as Charlie dragged Mia away, a barrage of bullets turned Raul into a sieve. Walker escaped outside with the 2 of them. Just as he was about to drive away with them, Clarice's personal female bodyguard also came out and began firing wildly at their car. Walker had to reverse while firing back to disrupt the opponent's formation. At this moment, Vince and another person also rushed out. Walker and his group successfully escaped. At this time, a large number of police officers arrived. Vince and his teammate once again escaped judgment by virtue of their police identities. Ellie also arrived at the scene with the team, but soon she received a call from Walker. Walker told her that Vince and the other 2 were also involved in what happened today, and that their pursuit of the truck earlier was only to take the drugs inside. He also told Ellie that they were the murderers of Shu Fang. Ellie was shocked after hearing this. Walker told her to go to the hospital to protect Cortez. He felt that someone would definitely cause trouble for Cortez after this incident. Having received the order, Ellie rushed to the hospital without stopping, but it was still one step too late, because Kui-hai had already arrived first. And through his conversation with Vince, it was learned that they had orchestrated everything, including chasing and intercepting the truck and killing Shu Fang. It turned out that after the death of the former Triad boss, the power should have been inherited by Kui-hai, the second in command. But Clarice had forcibly placed her son in this position. Kui-hai was dissatisfied, feeling that all his years of hard work had been in vain. So he and Vince and the others planned all of this, aiming to help him take the boss's seat and frame Charlie for everything. But he didn't expect that this plan became extremely difficult due to Walker's appearance. So they had the idea of killing all the people who knew the truth, including Cortez in the hospital bed. At this moment, Ellie had also arrived at the hospital, but while inquiring about the location of Cortez's room, she noticed Kui-hai in the hallway through the surveillance monitor. But when he turned around, Kui-hai bumped into Kayla, who was returning after getting water.
Freeze! I said freeze! Fuck you, Tom!
In front of Ellie, he wildly shot and killed the innocent Kayla. This completely enraged Ellie. She immediately got up and chased after him. The 2 engaged in a frantic shootout in the narrow stairwell. Bullets hit the surrounding handrails, sending sparks flying. Ellie successfully subdued Kui-hai. At this moment, she heard the sound of police sirens outside. To avoid any unforeseen circumstances, Ellie stuffed him into her car and quickly drove away. After leaving the bar, Walker took the 2 to a lakeside cabin left by his father. Charlie had been hit in the shoulder by a bullet, but fortunately, the injury wasn't too serious. Walker then called Beaumont, but he didn't know that Clarice answered the phone. Walker told her that he had found her son and sent her an address, asking her to come and pick him up as soon as possible. Unable to contact Walker, Ellie had no choice but to find Walker's ex-wife, where she also saw his 6-year-old daughter. After learning Ellie's intentions, the ex-wife told her the addresses where Walker might appear. Returning to the car, Ellie handed her phone to Qui Hai, asking him to call Vince and the others out. So Vince and Jake immediately rushed to the agreed location, and from a distance they saw Qui Hai standing there. However, just as they stepped forward to complete the transaction, Ellie suddenly raised her gun and leaned out of the car. Seeing this, Jake had no choice but to obediently remove the equipment he was carrying. On the other side, Walker had just put on his weapons and protective gear when he noticed a convoy of vehicles appearing outside. Immediately afterward, a group of fully armed men in black walked toward him. While falling to the ground to dodge, Walker tossed his handgun to Mia. Mia picked up the handgun and immediately returned fire without hesitation. Walker followed closely behind, pulling the trigger. Despite the relentless gunfire from the other side, Walker still seized the opportunity to take down an approaching gunman. This was followed by an even more frantic attack from the enemy. Seeing this, Charlie picked up a weapon from the ground. In this situation, only by working together would there be a glimmer of hope. This group of people kept attacking the house fiercely. Just as Walker was entangled with a thug, Charlie and Mia were forcibly dragged outside the house. Regaining his senses, Walker immediately joined the battle but was attacked by the female bodyguard. For a moment, Walker was completely overwhelmed by her attacks. Walker's body was pinned down by a collapsing wooden shed, but just as the female bodyguard stepped forward, intending to pull Walker out, the female bodyguard died just like that, and the exhausted Walker passed out. At this moment, Clarice arrived at the scene with Beaumont. Seeing his son covered in blood, Beaumont was extremely heartbroken. Clarice took the gun handed to her by her subordinate and then gave it to Beaumont. Clarice felt that only if he personally killed his own son would everything be fair, and Beaumont actually raised the gun after hearing this. Seeing this, Charlie kept begging for mercy. Just as tragedy was about to strike, Ellie suddenly appeared at the scene, holding Vince and Qui Hai and the others at gunpoint, exposing this bloody farce. Clarice finally realized that it was Qui Hai who had killed her son, but Qui Hai, after hearing this, still wanted to frame Vince and Jake and the others for everything. Jake picked up the handgun on the ground and aimed it at Charlie not far away. Seeing his son in danger, Beaumont decisively lunged forward. The bullets that were supposed to hit Charlie all entered Beaumont's body. Beaumont fell down. Walker, who had woken up, saw everything that had happened. He picked up the rifle in front of him and unleashed a barrage of fire at Jake, but failed to hit him. The scene instantly descended into another chaotic brawl. Clarice, caught off guard, was hit by a bullet from Qui Hai and fell to the ground dead. The entire battlefield escalated to another level of intensity due to her death. Qui Hai was severely wounded by Vince, and Vince, in front of him, took the bag of drugs worth millions of dollars. Watching the direction Vince fled, Walker immediately got up and chased after him, and the battle between Ellie and Jake also reached its final stage. Just as she was about to take down Jake, Ellie realized that her gun was out of bullets. Meanwhile, the fleeing Vince arrived at the railway tracks with the drugs, intending to hop on a train and escape. But unexpectedly, Walker was closely behind him. Just as Vince climbed onto the train, Walker shot him down with a burst of bullets. Seeing Walker about to approach, Vince immediately picked up his gun to resist. Thus, Walker was the only one left of the 5-member corrupt cop squad. After telling Charlie and Mia to leave and never return, Ellie turned and came to the side of the dying Walker. Walker confessed to her all the bad things he had done before and said that this time he didn't plan to run anymore. This was also the first time Ellie heard Walker acknowledge her words. Havoc. This movie is not just a simple action film. Through its gripping plot and intense action sequences, it profoundly reveals the dark side of society and the struggles and choices of human nature when faced with temptation and adversity. Every character in the film has their own motivations and goals. They intertwine in this world full of sin, jointly performing a thrilling life and death contest.